When you think of dominant NBA players, Shaquille O'Neal is right there at the top. He was a force in the 90s and the 2000s. In his career, he won 4 NBA championships, was selected to 14 All-NBA teams, was a 15-time All-Star, but somehow only has 1 MVP. From his rookie season in 1992 all the way until 2006, O'Neal averaged over 20 points per game, and in that time only averaged less than 10 rebounds once. But it's the 2004-2005 MVP that seems to bother him the most. That year, it was Phoenix Suns point guard Steve Nash who won the award. Nash was an elite floor general and had led the Suns to 62 wins, good for best in the NBA. On the year, Nash averaged 15.5 points per game and an NBA-leading 11.5 assists. Phoenix also led the league in scoring, and they had no shortage of options around Nash. He was set up perfectly with teammates like Joe Johnson, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, and Quentin Richardson. They also had an aging Jim Jackson who had a fantastic career on his own, and Leandro Barbosa coming off the bench. Shaq has made it clear on national TV that he believes he deserved the award that season. You can find multiple quotes and clips of Shaq talking about this, like this one here.
Coach Reggie, was he true MVP or was he a sympathy MVP?
No, he was a true MVP.
Over me? Twice? Oh, get out of here. Hey.
There was also the time that Shaq joked about it with Nash on Inside the NBA.
You're at your house. Can you show me one of those MVP trophies that you stole from me?
You can't make a free throw down the stretch. It's hard to get an MVP, buddy.
So, let's take a closer look at the numbers and how both teams and players panned out and see if Shaq has a legitimate gripe. The Suns that season were coached by Mike D'Antoni, who ran a perfect 7-second offense. Nash's best teammate had his own argument for MVP that season. Amari Stoudemire averaged 26 points and 8.9 rebounds, and that Nash and Stoudemire duo was nearly impossible to stop. Nash was 7th in offensive win shares that season, and Stoudemire was 1st with 11.3. Unfortunately for Phoenix that season, the Spurs were in the midst of their dynasty and beat them in 5 games in the conference finals. Now let's take a look at Shaq in his first season with the Miami Heat. This was Shaq's first season back away from the Lakers with Kobe Bryant, who he had had a public feud with over the past few seasons. He had something to prove and was paired with another young dynamic guard in Dwayne Wade. The two meshed immediately, and the Heat had the best record in the East and the second best record overall, right behind Nash's Suns. O'Neal averaged 22.9 points alongside 10.4 rebounds. He also added 2.3 blocks per game. Shaq was 20th in offensive win shares and 12th in defensive win shares that season. Like the Suns, Miami would go to the conference finals but fell in 7 to the eventual champion Detroit Pistons. Dwayne Wade averaged 24.1 points per game, 6.8 assists, and added 5.2 rebounds of his own. This is why this MVP is so controversial. Shaq averaged more points and had a much bigger impact on defense than Nash did. However, Nash's team was better in the regular season and had much more talent surrounding him. The MVP that season was only decided by a few votes, and in hindsight, both had their own arguments. Shaq has said that Nash winning this award was a sympathy vote, but with both having dominant seasons in their own right and each having a similar record with the Suns being slightly better and a tougher West, it's hard for me to agree with that. However, where I will agree with Shaq is the fact that he only has 1, Kobe only has 1, but Nash has 2 is a bit crazy. The next season, Nash would repeat for the award, averaging 18.8 points per game and 10.5 assists, and that is where Shaq has a legitimate reason to be mad about it. 1999 to 2000 was Shaq's only MVP win, and he averaged 29.7 points, 13.6 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. While in Orlando and LA, he had 10 straight seasons where he averaged over 26 points per game and had double-digit rebounds in every single one of them, and somehow only came out with 1 MVP for his whole entire career. But winning an MVP in the 90s was almost impossible. From the time Shaq came into the league in 1992 all the way until 1999, that decade's MVPs were Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, and Karl Malone. And after Shaq won it in 2000, the next 4 MVPs went to Allen Iverson, twice to Tim Duncan, and then Kevin Garnett. And then in the final 2 years of Shaq being at the top of his game, those 2 MVPs were the back-to-back to Steve Nash. So yes, Shaq does have a reason to be upset about not winning more MVPs, but I don't know if directing it at Steve Nash was the right move. He was much more worthy of winning the award in years outside of 2004-2005. And yes, Nash probably shouldn't have won it again the next season, but not due to Shaq. That season, LeBron James averaged 31.4 points, 7 rebounds, and 6.6 assists, while Dirk Nowitzki averaged 26.6 points and 9 rebounds, and Kobe Bryant averaged a whopping 35.4 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. And if it hadn't been for Kobe's recent legal trouble, I imagine he would have won the MVP. Funny enough, in 2008, Shaq would be traded to Phoenix for Shawn Marion and Marcus Banks. But the 2008-2009 season would be the only one the two played a full year together. Both were still solid, with Nash averaging 15.7 points and 9.7 assists per game. And Shaq made it back to the All-Star game for the first time in 4 years that season, where he averaged 17.8 points and 8.4 rebounds per game. Unfortunately for Phoenix, the West was very good that season. The Suns finished with a 46-36 record, which put them one spot out of the playoffs in 9th. And just for reference, the 7 and 8 seed that season were the Deron Williams Jazz and Chris Paul Hornets. After this season, Shaq would go on to play 2 more years, one with the Cleveland Cavaliers and one with the Boston Celtics. And Nash, on the other hand, would play 5 more seasons, 3 with the Phoenix Suns and 2 with the Los Angeles Lakers. Him joining the Lakers was a big deal at the time, as they still had Kobe and Dwight Howard had joined, and it was supposed to be a new big 3 in the NBA. But just 2 games into his time in LA, Nash would collide with Damian Lillard and fracture his knee. He still managed to play 50 games that season, but was never the same. And although the Lakers were solid, Kobe would tear his Achilles late in the season and the team would get swept by the Spurs in the playoffs. The next year would be his last. At 40 years old, the injuries just kept piling up, and he only played 15 games that season. Shaq and Nash were 2 players who had legendary careers and are both Hall of Famers, and each definitely had their own argument for that MVP. It's what you think makes an MVP that decides your argument. Nash was an elite playmaker and led his team to the best record in the NBA. But Shaq may have been more dominant, had better defense, and his team technically had a better conference finals. And again, the MVP voting this season was razor thin, with Nash getting just 7 more first place votes. So, who do you think deserved to win the MVP award? And do you believe that Nash should have gone back to back? Tell us down in the comment section, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And thank you for watching.